Therefore, there will always be anomalies to find. The presence of anomalies, therefore, doesn't really tell us anything. But conspiracy theorists use that in order to cast a sinister light on events and imply that there is some dark conspiracy going on. They often combine anomaly hunting with naive assumptions about how things should happen. Things are anomalous because they don't fit their idea of how events should have unfolded. For example, what should the debris field look like after a large commercial jet crashes into a reinforced building like the Pentagon? It's naive to assume that we can know with any detail what precisely would result from such an event. A large impact like that is unprecedented. The physics of high-energy impacts are not always intuitive. But 9/11 conspiracy theorists premise their claims partly on the notion that they should be able to predict what the debris field should look like, and therefore anything that doesn't fit their assumptions, such as how big the pieces of the plane should be, they call an anomaly, and evidence that the standard explanation is flawed and not true. They combine this with then the false dichotomy. For example, they say, well, there are problems with the standard explanation. I can find anomalies. The events don't quite add up or make sense. The debris field doesn't look like I would naively predict it to look like. Therefore, the standard explanation is wrong. Then they present the false dichotomy, and therefore my conspiracy theory is correct. They give that false choice. So that means that they don't have any burden of proof to prove that their conspiracy theory is correct. All they have to do is find anomalies, cast a doubt on the standard story, and then use the false dichotomy logical fallacy to replace the standard story of events with their conspiracy. Of course, anomaly hunting in and of itself is not persuasive because we expect to see anomalies. But there are many possibilities for why there may be unusual or unexplainable or unknown aspects to complex historical events. There may be other aspects to this story that are not being made public, for example. That doesn't necessarily mean that the specific conspiracy being offered must be true. That's the false choice or false dichotomy aspect of this. Let's give the events surrounding Roswell, New Mexico in 1947 as an example. There are many UFO conspiracy theorists who claim that the U.S. government is covering up details of a recovered crashed flying saucer in Roswell, New Mexico from 1947. Those who believe the government is engaged in this conspiracy to hide contact with aliens claim that evidence of a cover-up is proof of their alien claims. However, the U.S. government was engaged in a cover-up surrounding the events of the crash at a ranch in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. They were hiding the fact that they were engaged in a secret spy program, now made public and known as Project Mogul, which was the U.S. spying on Soviet nuclear weapons testing. So, yes, the government was engaged in a cover-up. Governments do engage in secrecy. So, from the fact that the standard explanation that what crashed was a simple weather balloon with a corner reflector on it, that does not explain everything, and that the government was being secretive doesn't necessarily mean that they were covering up a crashed alien spaceship. They were covering up a spy program that was occurring in the middle of the Cold War. Another cognitive trap that conspiracy theorists fall into is widening the conspiracy. This is another mechanism by which to render a conspiracy immune to contradictory evidence. For example, the existence of a massive U.S. conspiracy responsible for the events of 9/11 raises a lot of questions. How come the liberal-leaning part of the media have not exposed this? There were certainly no supporters of the Bush administration who is alleged to have carried out an inside job on 9/11. Why wouldn't they be diligently investigating this conspiracy or this cover-up, yet the mainstream media has never published any such story. How come the Democrats in the Congress, even when they had control of both houses, never launched an investigation that revealed the Bush administration's involvement in the events of 9/11? What about the military tracking of the jets of 9/11? If Flight 77 never crashed into the Pentagon, what happened to it and everyone on board? The more questions we ask, the larger the conspiracy seems to grow, because the conspiracy theorists simply say, well, they were part of the conspiracy. The media, they were in on it. The Democratic Party, even though they were the opposition party at the time, they must have been in on it as well. Anyone in a position to have tracked the jets at the time must also be part of the conspiracy. Other governments that may have been able to track what was going on, they too must be part of the conspiracy. The conspiracy grows and grows as widening the conspiracy is used to answer any of the implications of such a large conspiracy. Eventually, the power and resources attributed to the conspirators must also grow, until you have to believe that they are part of a world-spanning shadow government with their hands in everything in order to be able to pull off such a colossal event. In this way, grand conspiracy theories tend to collapse under their own weight. To give another example, if the U.S. never really landed astronauts on the moon, then why didn't the Soviet Union call us on it? They certainly could have tracked our rockets. Well, they must have been in on it as well. And what are the implications of the U.S. and the Soviet Union both being in on the same conspiracy during the Cold War? The number of people and organizations that would need to be involved becomes far too great to be plausible. Plausibility is not maintained with the grand conspiracy theory. What is the harm, if any, of conspiracy thinking or of conspiracy theorists? There is some debate, actually, some scholarly debate, as to whether the existence of conspiracy theories is a net positive or a net negative. On the positive side, the conspiracy theories do serve the purpose of challenging the powers that be. They do showcase deficiencies in these sometimes inadequate explanations that the government gives for their actions. And they further promote the need for transparency and full disclosure. The extreme secrecy by which many governments operate lends themselves to conspiracy theorists. Many conspiracy theorists, for example, also engage in freedom of information or FOI requests that bring information to the public's attention, even if it's not evidence for their pet conspiracy theory. On the other hand, conspiracy theories tend to erode confidence in government and democracy. Some argue they may even hurt the cause of transparency due to the conspiracy. In other words, the existence of absurd and implausible conspiracy theories can be used to dismiss any questioning of conventional explanations. Reasonable questions or attempts at keeping governments and corporations accountable and honest can be lumped in with the lunatic fringe of crazy conspiracy theories. Some conspiracy theorists have even hypothesized that the government is responsible for some of the worst conspiracy theories out there in order to delegitimize any questioning of the official version of events. For example, there have been those 9/11 conspiracy theorists who have hypothesized that some of the more outrageous 9/11 conspiracy theories were in fact perpetrated by the government, who is withholding evidence that can prove the conspiracy wrong. They're waiting for the time when it is ripe to reveal that evidence, conclusively proving that some 9/11 conspiracies are false. By this, they hope to delegitimize all 9/11 conspiracies, even the true ones or the legitimate ones. So the conspiracy allows conspiracy theories to, in fact, be turned on their head and to maybe hurt the cause of transparency and honesty by shrouding the entire enterprise of questioning the government with the broad brush that all conspiracy theories are nutty or kooky. Conspiracy theories also often have a very theories have a very simplistic or unidimensional approach to complex problems. They are sometimes or often framed in very racist or bigoted terms. For example, the conspirators may themselves be an ethnic group. Therefore, that ethnic group is tarred with the reputation of being part of a dark, evil group that is trying to perpetrate a nefarious conspiracy on the world or perhaps take control over segments of society. This both results from the underlying bigotry, but also reinforces that bigotry and racism itself. For good or for bad, conspiracy thinking is a type of pseudoscience that demonstrates many of the principles discussed in the previous lectures on science and pseudoscience. They meet many psychological needs. They are built on cognitive biases and maintained with logical fallacies. They are further fueled by errors in perception and memory. The entire process is fatally flawed, what some psychologists have called epistemologically crippled, because it is a manifestation of circular reasoning that immunizes the conspiracy theory from any possibility of refutation. And this is a huge red flag. The lesson from this is that you should always be on the lookout for subtle mechanisms by which you are insulating your own beliefs from facts or evidence. We shouldn't think, in fact, that conspiracy thinking is restricted to just the lunatic fringe. As I said at the beginning of this lecture, we all have a little conspiracy theorist hiding inside each of us. Keeping on the lookout for genuine conspiracies is important, which is partly why conspiracy thinking persists. The ability to, and the tendency to ask, is there a conspiracy against me? Are people doing things in such a way to work against my own interests? That's clearly an adaptive way of thinking. Otherwise, it would not have persisted as it did. There was a conspiracy, for example, on 9/11. The conspiracy was orchestrated and carried out by Al-Qaeda. This is one that was missed, and the government failed to prevent it. Perhaps it could have been prevented if there was a higher level of curiosity, even paranoia. There was a conspiracy also, for example, to assassinate Abraham Lincoln, a conspiracy that succeeded and was eventually uncovered. The difference between searching for genuine conspiracies and the grand conspiracy theory is similar to the difference between science and pseudoscience. When a conspiracy is hypothesized, you have to treat it like any other scientific hypothesis, not just assume the conspiracy is true, look for confirming evidence, insulate it from disconfirming evidence, shift the burden of proof, and then support the theory with anomaly hunting. That's the pseudoscience of grand conspiracy theories. Rather, you should ask scientific, skeptical questions. Is this really true? Is there another way, a more innocent way to interpret this evidence? What do we really say? What can we really say, and what do we really know? Is there evidence for this particular conspiracy, for this interpretation of events? What else is implied? If the conspiracy were true, what else would have to be true? And can we investigate that? You can engage in a scientific, skeptical investigation of any conspiracy theory to determine which conspiracy theories are likely to be true and which ones are not true. By examining the extreme conspiracy theories, the pseudoscientific conspiracy theories, we hope to identify those patterns of thought and cognitive traps that we all fall into to a lesser degree. Being familiar with grand conspiracies will help us identify the more subtle flaws in our own day-to-day reasoning.
Yeah, the fucking fake applause, too. Honestly, I mean, you're going to do that? Hope my family's not listening to this. Yeah, you're going to hear a little feedback here because I got to make sure the show's coming through. Turn this shit down. Yep, we're working. Yep, we're working. Okay, good. It's going to be a little bit lower volume on the talk than it was on the lecture, but you know how that goes. Barco in here hating on me in the chat room. I lost the rest of my guests. Sorry, you guys. What happened was I have this beautiful $85 headset that my friend got